Hey, welcome to the Tales of a Gearhead podcast. This is brought to you by Cornwell Tools. They're the choice of professionals since 1919. Yeah, 1919. A little bit of quick math work. That's over 100 years of building top quality tools. I'm your host, Stacey David. All right, let's turn the key and get rolling. All right, here's a question for you. Have you gotten out lately and enjoyed your car? And if your car is in 1,000 pieces in the garage, have you enjoyed your friends' cars, their muscle cars or their trucks or their sports cars or their, component cars or whatever? If not, you need to get out and enjoy your car some. Don't work on them just all the time. I had a chance to go up to London, Ohio this last weekend and spend some time with the Ohio Cobra Club. Now, this is the largest gathering of Cobras in the United States, possibly the world. And these people come from all over the United States, and these are Cobra owners. And it's not just original Cobras, it's anybody that owns a Cobra, whether it's a replica or whatever. And it's GT40s, it's Daytonas. Gosh, you can bring anything. They don't care. They wanted me to bring the Cheetah. Yeah, and I would have. It just wasn't finished yet. And these guys just celebrate these amazing cars that were pioneered by Carroll Shelby. All the manufacturers are there that do the component Cobras, like Factory 5 and Hurricane and Backdraft and Superformance and ERA and Unique and all those companies. There's just all kinds of stuff going on there. They shut down the road. They had a big street fair in this small town, London, Ohio. And I have to say, it was one of the funnest things I've done in a long time. And here is why. These guys, they show up, obviously, they all showed up at the hotel with their cars in trailers because they didn't drive from Texas in a Cobra, although I'm sure a few guys did. But then once they got the cars out of the garage or out of the trailers, that was it. They drove those cars everywhere. There was no trailer queens. There was no car shows. There were no trophies. It was just people enjoying the Cobras. And there's like 200 Cobras parked on the street. The police blocked off a quarter mile on the street, and they let people uncork their Cobras down the road. And they were giving rides for $10 a ride. And people were lined up, to go for a ride in these Cobras. And these guys were not dinking around in these cars. These were full-on hard launches, at least getting through third gear, up around 90 miles an hour before they backed off of these things. And I'm watching this, and I'm seeing young men, I'm seeing old men, I'm seeing women, I'm seeing children that are getting here, gladly paying their $10. All the money went to cystic fibrosis, and the people were getting into the seats. They had their arms up like they were riding some amusement park ride or a roller coaster and launching this thing. Not a person was texting and bored and not paying attention. I mean, it was one of the funnest automotive experiences. The thing that was unique about it is everybody was about enjoying the cars. The sounds, the smells, the burning rubber. It was just phenomenal. I've been to a lot of events like rat rod deals and street rod things, and people get out and drive their cars, and it's great. But a lot of that becomes kind of a point A to point B kind of thing. A lot of times when you're with the street rod guys, they'll pull into town and everybody will admire their cars as they kind of stand around and look at them. Not so with the Cobra guys. They come in town, they swagger. And it's like, oh, you want to ride? Jump in the car, let's rock. And they will have you squealing like a little girl. It was so amazing to see that world. I just wanted to give a big thumbs up to those guys and to tell you guys, if you are not involved in something like this, you need to look into it. Whether you're into Cobras or not, find yourself a club or get involved with somebody like this that enjoys their cars. Because I tell you what, everybody is always asking, well, how do we get the younger generation involved? How do we get that fast and furious generation involved in our older cars? Well, you do it just like that. Because as I sat there, I watched these young kids, 10, 8, 9, 14 years old, standing in line to ride in these cars, grinning from ear to ear, laughing. And they walked up to me. One kid had all the brochures of all the Cobra manufacturers at the place. And I said, well, what do you have there? He goes, I'm shopping for the Cobra that I'm going to build. And I was that kid. At that age, that was me. Except there were not all these manufacturers out there. There was like one. And it was questionable as far as the quality. So this is a huge opportunity to get these younger guys and girls involved in these. These cars are so cool. And the people were so cool. It's just really something to really get involved in. Now, another thing that's really cool about the aftermarket, not just the Cobra aftermarket, but just the aftermarket in general, the quality of the parts and the quality of the cars has gone up so much that you can literally drive these cars all day long and not have any problem. For example, there was one guy that gave 54 rides. 54 all day, 54 rides with his Cobra. And these are not little sissy putt-putt. These are full-on, full-throttle launches banging the gears through 3 or 4 gears. The car did not break down. It did not overheat. It did not spring a leak. It didn't give him any problems. He just drove back and did another one. That is phenomenal for the aftermarket to be able to put out products in engines and transmissions and kits and components that will allow you to do that. There were guys out there that had twin turbos and they didn't blow turbo tubes. And it's the same thing that I see with guys that go out and run, like the Optima Challenge with their street car. They run all day. And they're building cars using parts from Fat Man's or TCI or Heights or Detroit Speed, any of these other manufacturers for suspensions, QA1 shocks and Curry Enterprises rears and all kind of stuff. And these products now allow you to beat on these cars like we were not able to do, when I was growing up. You'd get a few runs out of it and something would let go and you had to go rebuild your car. I just wanted to encourage you, if you haven't gotten out and seen what's really being built and what people are doing, get out there, man. Enjoy some of this stuff. It will be inspiring to you. And if you don't have a car, you may want to think about building yourself a Cobra.
I know we've talked about this dozens of times, and every time we see a Pantera, we talk about this. Would you tell the story? It's such a fun story about when you were younger and out where in Idaho?
Oh, yeah.
And tell that story.
It was a Lamborghini Miura. So I was probably a junior in high school, and I had a 1946 CJ2A Jeep with a Corvette motor in it. This is what I'm driving around. And I had 2 or 3 friends in this Jeep. There were a couple of friends behind me. One had a Mustang and another one had a Camaro, and we're just, driving down the road. And we drive past this service station, and here is a Lamborghini Miura in there. Now, I didn't know the name of the car. I just knew it was one of those cars. It's that Lamborghini thing. And he had the back of it up. And, man, we've whipped in there. Keep in mind, we are a bunch of high school kids, T-shirts and shorts and just, crazy. And I walk up to the guy, and he's got the back of that thing open, and there's that V12 Lamborghini motor sitting in there. And I have never experienced anything like this. This was an epiphany moment for me. So there's the guy, and he had the little French mustache, and he was in a racing suit. It was a white suit with the red and blue stripes running down the side. I walked up to him, and I said, "Man, what is this?" And he goes, "Oh, that's a Lamborghini Miura." And he had this great accent. Everything matched. And that guy took the time to talk with me, especially, and the other guys are kind of like, "Oh, that's kind of cool." He took the time to talk with me and answer my questions, like, "How fast does it go? Can I ride in it?" All these crazy things. And I never forgot that. It was such a huge thing for me. And he was just eager to talk about the car. He showed me, how the engine was in there sideways instead of, in a traditional forward and aft setup. He showed me the interior. He walked me around it, and it meant so much to me. I never forgot that. And it really was something that kind of introduced me into that world of like, gosh, these guys are really cool that have these kind of cars. Much, much different than later, in the 80s and 90s when the people that drove those cars tended to be a little snooty and standoffish. This guy was not that at all. He obviously was a racer and ran this thing. Man, it was cool. And I've never forgotten it. Always loved the Lamborghinis because of that.
So would you say that, like, when you were in Ohio this past weekend, were you able to see a lot of that kind of, like, those magic moments?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The guys that came up and talked to me and said, man, I grew up watching your show, and it was like, you inspired me, and I'm here because of that. That was awesome. But then I saw a lot of these young kids. There was one, I kid you not, I looked at him and I was like, you are a mini me. I mean, I was that exact kid at that age. He had all those brochures, and his dad was there with him, and he was like, yeah, he's going to build him a Cobra one day. You kind of like how dads are. It's like, yeah, when dad gives the money to the kid. But I'm like, the kid was just on fire with a desire to do that. And I promise you, if he would have walked over to those cars and those guys would have been jerks, that kid would have thrown those brochures in the trash, and he would have got himself a Celica or something. He'd start watching the Fast and the Furious movies and go, that's where I want to go. The fact that he could come over and sit in these things, take a ride, listen to them, and these guys were so cool, you got a gearhead for life there. And the thing that was cool about it, it wasn't just guys. I mean, there were girls that were every bit as passionate about it as the guys were. The biggest problem that everybody has now is that most of these younger people don't know how to drive a stick, which is a problem because all these Cobras are sticks. This whole Cobra thing has gone way beyond what Carroll Shelby originally intended. It got way beyond him. Just like Beatlemania got bigger than the Beatles themselves, the same thing happened with the Cobra deal. And it continues on to this day. I mean, Carroll finally had to realize that the Cobra belongs to the people, kind of like William Shatner had to realize that he'll always be Captain Kirk, whether he likes it or not. You can't own something that the world has taken on and decided it's theirs, and that's really what the Cobra is. The name itself, when you see one of those cars drive by, people say, that's a Cobra. It doesn't matter if just because of the shape. It's like, that's a Cobra. That looks like a Cobra. And for a car to look like that and to have that kind of influence that was never built by a major manufacturer, I mean, you expect to do that with a Corvette. Hey, there goes a Corvette. Hey, there goes a Lamborghini. Hey, there goes that. The Cobra, it was a hand-built car by a tiny independent car builder. So for it to have that kind of oomph is huge. And everybody knows what they look like. It's a phenomenon that I just see growing. These guys continue to build these cars, and the Daytonas, people are building those. Of course, the one I want to build is the GT40. That's the one I'm working on.
Do you think that the Cheetah will ever hit the same magnitude as the Cobra, or was it just not out long enough that the mystique is still there? Do you think it'll ever have the footprint that the Cobra has?
No, the Cheetah will never have the footprint of the Cobra, unfortunately. The Cheetah was just not developed enough. I mean, it's got its own pedigree. It won enough races. It's got a lot of notoriety. It's kind of the alter ego. The thing about a Cheetah is when one rolls in, they're so unique and they're so odd that people will flock to see it. People don't flock to see Cobras anymore. Everybody's seen them. They kind of know what they are. And they're still cool. People still love them. It doesn't have that, whoa, that's weird. That's kind of the land where the Cheetah is. Bill Thomas's dream for the Cheetah was to do exactly what Carroll Shelby did. He planned on offering a racing version of the Cheetah and a street version and one with a set of luggage and all that, but it just never happened. And the Cheetah only being out 1 year, just a part of history now. Like for me, see, I like to have something a little different, and I really like the shape of the Cheetah. So that's a perfect car for me to do. But if I set it beside a Daytona, well, they're kind of the same shape. So I take a Daytona too. I like them all. When the subject of tools comes up in the shop, people will all talk about their sockets and their wrenches, but then we start to get into the subject of exotic tools. These are your body working tools, and these are your flangers and all these special tools. And people are like, where do you get those? Because you're not going to find those at Home Depot, and you're not going to find them at the local hardware store. And that is where Cornwell comes in. They have a catalog that's like the old phone books. You remember the phone books? Well, that's a Cornwell catalog. And these guys will bring the tools right to you. Once you start to get into that world, and once you start to see what's out there, you'll be like, what have I been doing messing around with the stuff that I find locally? One of the cool things about a company like Cornwell is that they do have warranties, and they have guys right on the trucks that can really talk to you about the tools and steer you in the right direction. So if you're really into your projects and you're into doing things right with good tools, check out Cornwell. Okay, we have another question here. This comes from Alex. Alex is an off-roader, and he is asking, what are the best off-road lights? He's looking to set up his Jeep to go off-roading, and he wants something, as he says, that can blind the people coming down, that he can see for miles. And that's the way we used to do it. When I was first getting into Jeeps and off-roading way back, you just got the brightest lights that you possibly could get, and you had the KC sunlighters, and the bigger they were, the better, and the more impressive, and you wanted to blind people 5 miles away and all that kind of stuff. 10 million candle power and all that kind of thing. Well, over the years, people have found out that's not the best way to light your vehicle, and it's not the best way to see when you're out off-roading. If you think about it, you want to see all the way around your vehicle, and if you are a rock crawler and you're rock crawling at night, you have different lighting needs than somebody that's running 100 miles an hour across the deserts of Baja. And if you're just an overlander or a trail rider, obviously your lighting needs are different than either of those other two. A company named Baja Designs, who makes some of the best off-road lights out there, they came out with a whole system of lighting. And even if you don't buy their lighting, this is a great system for laying out the light. So we're going to kind of talk about this a little bit. They basically have come up with this thing called zone lighting. Now, if you think about your vehicle, just visualizing if you're driving down the road, if you're looking forward, if you just take and make a V shape off of both front fenders, that's just kind of like the bell of a trumpet going out, that's zone 1. And it would go out probably 50 feet. And then zone 2 would be like a big rectangle right in front of your vehicle that would run perpendicular to the front of the vehicle. Kind of like if your vehicle was the base of the letter T, zone 2 would be the top bars of a T. And then zone 3 is basically like zone 2, but it's further out and a little smaller. Zone 4 is a circle that's right out in the center, getting further out as we go. Zone 5 is a smaller circle on out. And then zone 6 is right around the vehicle. Zone 7 is reaching out the sides of the vehicle, and then zone 8 is behind. I know that sounds kind of confusing, but bear with me here. Most of the time when you're running off-road, a basic off-road light, you're going to hit zone 1, zone 2, and zone 3. And that just gives you a nice wide light to the sides and forward. So it's utilizing a small spotlight and a small floodlight to the side. So you have nice light ahead of you, and then you have nice light off to the side of the vehicle. Now, keep in mind, you're not seeing much, from the doors straight out, you're not seeing behind you, and you're not seeing way down the road. Now, if you are getting into a situation where you're hunting, or you're starting to drive quickly in the dark, well, you need to cast some light straight out ahead of you. You don't really need it to go to the sides anymore. So now you're starting to get into zone 4 and zone 5. And these are going to be your high power spots. These are going to be the ones that throw the light miles straight down the center in front of the vehicle, not to the side. So it's kind of like a flashlight with a real focused beam. And that's how you want your long throw lights to be. So you can see what's coming. That way you can see if you're driving 50, 60 miles an hour, in the Serengeti, you don't want an antelope to jump out in front of you. You can see it coming a long ways away. And then if you are rock crawling and you need to see around the vehicle, maybe you have some lights that kind of show underneath the vehicle to see where the rocks are. You're starting to get into your zone 6s and zone 7s. And those are more of a wider floodlight that will go up underneath the vehicle and around the side. If you're setting up, say you come back and you're out hunting or fishing, and late at night, you set up a workstation off to the side of the vehicle, well, that's where you're going to be in your zone 6s and zone 7s, and you want a nice floodlight to give you light to work out there, not blind everybody. And then, of course, zone 8 back behind the vehicle is going to be kind of a combination spot and flood as well, to get light around. One of the good things, if you go to Baja Designs, they've got lights that are set up to hit each one of these zones, and they can really help you dial in the lights you need. And their lights look good too. I mean, they're impressive looking. So you're going to get that impressive thing that you're after. You're also going to get the lights that you need. Just like anything else, when we first started building cars, it was all about just go fast. The biggest and the best and the loudest way that you possibly could. And then we've slowly started to refine this to where you get more performance through a supercharger or a turbo, and you start to refine the vehicle and zero in exactly how you're going to use it. Well, lighting has done the same thing. Instead of just throwing on a big bank of lights that just blows everybody away, now you can really light the vehicle the way you want it to be. If you watch the buildup that we did last season on the Gladiator, the Jeep Gladiator, I set up all of these zones with their lights, and it came out really cool. If you want to watch that show, you'll kind of see the approach that we took to doing that. Alex, I hope this helps, man. Good luck to you, and get out there and off-road that thing. All right, that's it for today. Once again, we're brought to you by Cornwell Tools. Have a great day, and get out there and work on something.